Welcome, everyone. I'm Diana Eidenschenk, president of the ACE Mentor Program, and this is the next in our series of the financial webinars that we talked about, and this one is on scholarships. We are very pleased today to be joined by Bob Durham and Sarah Griffin from College Now. College Now has worked with our Greater Philadelphia affiliate for many years. And we asked them to come in and really give us a good overview of scholarships and financial aid. After they're done, we'll talk a little bit more specific about ACE, and then we would be happy to answer any questions you might have. As the presentation is going on, we ask that you keep yourself muted and that if you have any questions, you please type it into the chat so that we can answer it when we are done. And with that, I'd like to introduce Bob and have him start the presentation.
Hi, thanks for having us. As you mentioned, we're from College Now Greater Cleveland. We've been partnering with the ACE program here in Cleveland for, I want to say it's almost 12 years now, and we manage their scholarship process for them, including all the administrative work on their scholarship. Just to give you an idea of College Now, we are a nonprofit organization. Our goal is to help people increase education after high school. We do that through advising in high schools, in community centers, libraries, anywhere you can think of. We work with roughly a little over 30,000 students a year, from traditional age students all the way up to, we say, 19 to 99. We also manage scholarships. Last year, we did over $9 million in scholarships, 300 roughly different funds. So lots of different types of scholarships. And then we also provide retention services we have a mentoring program where we match students with mentors. And we also have a coaches program where we have staff who are actually working with students at college campuses. So that's College Now in an overview. We can go on to the next slide. Great. So we were asked to come in and basically talk about financial aid sort of generally, but how it can impact scholarship, the work you guys are doing, and things like that. First thing I think is really sort of seems simple. What is financial aid? Financial aid is any type of aid that's there to help pay for a student's education, whether it be for tuition and fees, room board, textbooks, all those things. Some of it can be gift money, like grants and scholarships, which is money they don't have to pay back. Grants are typically based on family income and off the FAFSA. Scholarships are typically from organizations or colleges, and they can have all kinds of different criteria. Loans are also financial aid, and it's simple. We all know what loans are. You got to pay that money back when you're done with school. And work study is a federal program where if a student works an on-campus job, they can receive funding through the federal work study program. All these things come together and create a student's financial package. Next slide. So what I mentioned before, what can financial aid be used for? Tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, travel expenses, student needs to get back and forth from campus, and miscellaneous expenses. Every school is required to come up with estimated costs for all of these expenses, and that creates a cost of attendance, which is what the institution says a student is going to have to pay if they go to college there. Some of these are direct billed, some of them are not. So if a student's living on campus, they are going to get billed for room and board. But if they are not living on campus, there's still a cost. The student's going to live somewhere. So they put a cost out there for room and board. The students can use financial aid, whether it be for off-campus housing, apartments, things like that. Books and supplies, travel, miscellaneous expenses, they aren't going to be charged for these, but they do come up with a number so students can receive aid to help support them. Some students, especially a lot of the students we're working with, they have no family support. So they need money to get to campus. They need money to cover clothes. They need money to buy their books. Why is cost of attendance important? It basically determines how much financial aid a student can receive. That number, that cost of attendance number a student comes up with, that is the maximum amount of financial aid a student can receive. So just to do easy math, if it's say $10,000 total cost of attendance, it's actually probably gonna be much higher than that. Let's go 30,000. Students cannot receive aid above that $30,000. It is also used to determine what types of financial aid a student can receive. So there's different types of loan programs, different types of grant and scholarship programs. So the cost of attendance plus a student's financial need can determine what type of aid a student can receive. Sarah, feel free to jump in if I forget to say anything that you think I should put out there. We can go on to the next slide. So what we're really here to talk about is scholarships. Scholarships, very general, money given to students to help cover their cost of education. They don't have to pay it back. It's money for them to use. They can be awarded based on the specific criteria of the funder. So some of them can be merit-based, some of them can be program-based, some of them can be financial need-based, can be anything they want. The funder creates the criteria. The only real rule is that it has to be a fair and a real competition. You can't set it up so narrowly that you're funneling the money to one specific person. And they are part of the student's financial aid package, regardless of where the funds come from. So if a student gets a scholarship from the school, that's part of their financial aid package. If they get an outside scholarship, that is also part of that financial aid package. So if a student has a cost of attendance of 30,000 and you guys give them $35,000, they're going to have to send some of that money back because they cannot receive money over that cost of attendance. Scholarships can also be awarded for certain things. It can be used for the total cost of attendance. So you're okay with the students using it for tuition fees, but you'd also be okay with it for room and board, books and supplies, any of those types of things. Some funders require it to be specifically for tuition and fees. And then others, we've had people create book scholarships, things like that. Funds for this to help cover students' book expenses, or specifically for room and board. We have a couple of those. The only real rule is that you have to have it set and you have to follow your policies. Okay, next slide. We go to the next slide. We actually duplicated this slide, but one looks better than the other. Okay. So administering scholarships. College Now, like I said, we have over 300 different funds, and these are some things that we really sort of focus our work on. First thing we want to show when we talk to a new funder or creating a new is what is the purpose of the scholarship? When you're creating a scholarship, understanding what are you really trying to accomplish and what is most important to you. Are you trying to reward the highest performing students? Are you trying to help students that might have not gone to college go to college? You know, that depending on if how you answer that question is really going to determine how you set your scholarship up. If you're wanting to help students that might not have go to school, picking a very high academic criteria for that scholarship probably isn't the best plan. So really sort of focusing it in, what are you trying to accomplish a scholarship? Build the application around that when you start creating it. Next thing, we want to make sure it's easy to understand. We want to make sure students know right up front what all the requirements are for that scholarship at the very beginning of the process. You don't want to surprise students. You also want to use straightforward and clear language. You don't want to use real technical jargon that might be not easily to understand. Make sure the application is relevant to your students. If you're not going to use the information that you're asking for, why are you asking it? You don't really want to waste a lot of time for you, but also for the student having to fill out a bunch of stuff that isn't even going to be factored into the selection process. If your system, College Now uses an application system that allows us to use skip logic, which means if they answer a question one way, it'll take them to this question. If they answer it another way, it'll take them to that question. That way you can really sort of start eliminating, repetitive questions for students that don't really apply to them. Really want to make sure it's fair. I think that's the biggest thing. Is it accessible? Do you need to have multiple application in multiple languages? Are there things in it that are making it unfair for certain applicants based on, could be anything, just sort of think about how how it could effectively be creating biases. And then realistic. You got to look at the population of the students you're working with. If your students, I look at like here in Cleveland, the Cleveland Municipal School District average ACT scores around 17. If you want a bunch of scholarships or CMSD, you probably shouldn't set the ACT score at 25, because you're not going to have any applicants. And then you also want to take into consideration the amount of work versus the scholarship award that you're going to give out to the students. Some applications are very, very, very difficult to complete, and students will stop if it just becomes too hard. They'll start it and they won't come back. So you want to make sure that you're making the process easy for the students. You still want to get all the information, but you don't need to get more information than you're actually going to use. Sarah, is there anything else here you would add in? I know this is more your world.
Yeah, I think like just a simple example of like making sure it's fair and like not unintentionally biasing your application, you know, remembering what you were like at 17, but also knowing that today's 17-year-olds, for example, a lot of them are going to do this on their phone. And for some of our students, they may not have a computer at home. So can they fill out your application fully on their phone, right? Does it work? Is it accessible to them? Can they answer it? Is it quick enough that they could do it on their phone? Like even something as small as that of making sure your application is mobile compatible can help you reach the broadest students, that they can do it quickly and in a way that is accessible to them, and making sure what you're asking is what you're going to use either to determine that they are eligible for the scholarship or when you're picking amongst students. We often see people who are like, oh, we want like 2 letters of recommendation, but what are you really getting out of those letters of recommendation? And are we just asking the student for more information than we really need based on what the purpose of the scholarship is and what we want to do with it? And maybe you're not getting the information you want. So why make the student go get 2 letters of recommendation if one will do, or you get enough information from their essay, and trying to be thoughtful about remembering it's a 17-year-old and they have lots of competing interests on their time. So it's making it as easy as possible for them to apply and get you the best applicants possible. That's all I'd add.
All right, next slide. Administering scholarships. Actually, Sarah, I'm going to let you take the lead on this one since you worked much closer on this part of it.
Sure. So in an ideal world, you've had a bunch of students apply, you have plenty of students and sadly not enough money. You really want to think through when it comes to how are we going to choose amongst these students in terms of how are you going to pick? We always utilize a scoring rubric. So saying, okay, their GPA can earn them 5 points, and like a 3.5 and above is a full of 5, and then the next set is 4, and really sort of figuring out what actually are going to be your key points where you're choosing between students, and then making sure that it's weighted appropriately. So if you're asking, for example, for GPA and test score, and maybe both of those are 5 points, but their essay and what they wrote in that essay is also 5 points, are those things actually equal in value to you and what you want to weight when you're thinking about students? Because essentially we're saying, oh, students who perform well academically are going to get more points because they could get potential 10 points, versus a student who may not have that same ability or not be able to do as well academically, but write a really good essay and really speak to the purpose of your scholarship and what you want. So taking a little bit of time to figure out, okay, when we are looking at an applicant, what are the things that we're actually considering and what is most important, and weighting that where you can. If you have a really small scholarship, it might be possible that you're choosing between 4 or 5 people and you're going to have a more open discussion. So you don't necessarily need a very formal, we are giving everybody a numerical value type scoring rubric, but having some sort of agreed upon, this is how we are selecting amongst these students, helps everybody be on the same page and ensure there's a really fair and equitable process here. And then once you sort of have your students, you're also going to want to have a selection committee. So figuring out how we are going to select between different people and who is going to be on that committee. So is it important to you to have former students or former recipients in the meeting to help select new people? Or is it, current volunteers who maybe work directly with students? Does it make sense for them to be in that? Are they comfortable choosing between students they might know? And really making sure that you're having a variety of people in the room to have everybody represented and that they're all on the same page. If it's possible for your scholarship, we always take off names. So we don't show our selection committee the actual name of the student. It's student 1, student 2, student 3, to try and eliminate any bias, but that might not be possible given what all your committee is looking at. And then once The committee has sort of made decisions either based on your scoring rubric or their discussion or a combination of both, sending out notification to students who got the scholarship and also students who didn't, even though, we wouldn't really get into a student of like why they were not selected over another, just being like, hey, thank you so much for applying. Unfortunately, you weren't selected this year, right? Making sure that they know what they're getting and if they're getting it. And for students who are selected, having really clear next steps. What do you need after they're selected to get their money sent out? What are your terms for if they are getting the scholarship? Here's what we need to see from you. Here's a list of the things you need to turn in if there is anything. This is the information we need, and really being thorough but concise, which I know is sometimes contradictory. Students don't read long emails, so letting them know, congratulations, you've got the scholarship. Here is your next step, and making sure that they know who to contact if they have a question, and also making sure that you have their contact information for when they're in school. If they have any concerns or there is an issue, oftentimes we'll have students who apply with their high school email, and that's going to get shut off after they're graduated. So making sure that you have their contact information and they have yours so you guys can talk to each other and make sure everything is going smoothly and things are handled as they are supposed to. I think that's everything for selection, unless Bob, you have any additional?
Sounds good. Next slide.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna jump into the awards area, and these are just things that to keep in mind when you're actually making the awards to the student. Sarah did mention a little bit about documentation as far as like contact information and stuff. We really want to make sure that every student is signing an award agreement, which does include the criteria of the scholarship and what is going to be their responsibility as part of the scholarship. Also, it should include the amount and how it's going to be awarded. So if you're going to pay it all in once payment in the fall or two payments in the spring. We ask for enrollment verification. We're pretty flexible on what we use for enrollment verification. We don't want it to be a barrier. So basically, the student just needs to submit their schedule, bill, anything showing that they're actually enrolled in school. I mentioned that Sarah and I mentioned the contact information, but we also want to make sure the student has good contact information for the scholarship provider. So for you guys, so if a student has a question, they know who to reach out to and how to get a hold of them. And then one thing we also do with all of our students is we gather permission to share information. If you want to use the student's information in any of your publicity and things like that, you need to make sure you're getting permission from your students to do that. Just because you're giving them money, shouldn't assume that they're okay with you putting their information out in the public. Along with that documentation, we talk about the terms of the scholarship. Is your scholarship renewable or 1 year? Renewable means they can get it for multiple years. If you do decide it's renewable, what is that renewal criteria? That should be made up front for the students to understand and on that award agreement. Also, are you setting clear expectations with the students? I know here in Cleveland, they want their scholarship recipients to stay involved with ACE Cleveland. The students know up front that is part of the criteria of the scholarship. They are matched with a mentor from ACE while they're in college still through the College Now program. The students know they are required to participate in that if they'd like to continue to get their scholarship. There should be nothing that surprises the student at any point. And just a little bit of advice, tell them over and over and over again because they'll forget. And then disbursement of scholarship directly to the student or to the school. That's a decision you have to make. College Now sends all of our payments directly to the schools for a couple reasons. A, we want to know the students using it for actual education expenses. But also, as I mentioned before, all financial aid is part of the cost of attendance. And if you give the student a scholarship and you pay it directly to them, it is still part of their financial aid package. And if the school were to find out about that, it could have an adverse effect on the student if the student, depending on how the student's other financial aid was sitting. And finally, scholarship could be taxable. Every year, colleges give their students tax documentation of their scholarships, and then the students can determine from that whether or not they have to pay any taxes on those scholarships. So it's just, for our opinion, much safer to do it directly to the school, but there are times when you may want to send it directly to the student. And if you do that, though, I do highly recommend you add something into your language that they should report that scholarship to their school. And B, also let them know that this scholarship could be taxable and that they should, if they have questions, talk to a tax professional. Mentioned already the one payment or two. That's pretty self-explanatory. Do you want to just go out in fall semester, or are you going to split it between semesters? And then finally, refunds. This one is sort of interesting because you may have a student that you sent money to for school and they dropped out. The school may reach out to you and say, do you want the money back, or do you not, or can we keep it? I recommend you guys have a policy for that. College Now uses sort of the theory is that the student was billed for it. We don't want them to be hurt by them sending the scholarship back. So we say they can keep it for this semester. They won't get it, going forward again, unless they return to school. But if they weren't billed for the classes, if they dropped out before the add drop period was over, and they were refunded their money, we do ask them to send the funds back. Next slide. I think this is where Ace takes over. Yeah.
Sorry, it wasn't releasing my mute. So thank you so much, both Bob and Sarah, for giving us a clear overview. What we wanted to do is just spend a few minutes just talking about ACE and best practices. And no, there's a lot of writing on these slides. We will be sending out to all of you a copy of this presentation, as well as the actual forms that are going to be referenced. But as far as eligibility, from the ACE mentor perspective, and these are the terms that we use at National, but an applicant must be a senior, registered and marked active for the current ACE year, and planning to enter either a skilled trades or 2 4-year college or university program. The student must be an active participant in the program with good attendance, and they need to have strong recommendations by their mentors. And then they must be planning to go into a major of one of our approved majors, and we will be sharing the list that National uses. The eligibility should be clearly communicated to mentors, team leads, and the students so people do know who is eligible to apply. As far as your processing, you should set dates, such as what we have done with the CMIC scholarships, where we've told you when the application opens, when it's due, when we'll evaluate them, and then when we will announce them, and make sure that the schedules are clearly communicated again to all parts of the program, the student, parents, and the mentors. So if you're not using, and I've heard it called award acceptance, agreement, we refer to it as the terms of the scholarship, but everyone should be using some form of terms. And again, we're going to send you a sample of what we use for National. But in the terms, it should be specific that these scholarships are being funded for students in the following fields of study. Remember that a lot of our money comes from organizations within our industry, and they want to make sure that our students are following a path that's going to lead them into the industry. For National, we say if they get under $10,000 a year, we will give them the option of whether we pay them directly or we pay the school. But you need to specify exactly so they know when the payment will come. And you will see that we even say that it is only distributed in the fall. So the students are very clear that it's a one-time payment to cover their tuition for the year. We talk about that they have to give us proof. They have to have confirmation of enrollment in their selected major, and that they have to, in order to continue to get their scholarship, they do have to stay in good standing with their school. We also let them know that if they change colleges or their path, as long as they're staying within the disciplines of our fields of study, then it does not affect their ability to get this money. You should clearly specify what would cause them to forfeit their scholarship. So for National, we say they must be in good academic standing. They must continue in their field as approved by ACE, and they have to annually provide proof that we require from them. And we also ask the students that they come back for their first payment within 2 years of graduation from high school. Know that we do have students that go for gap years. As long as the student has communicated to us, we have extended that a little bit. But for the most part, we really want them to start communicating with us and applying within the first 2 years or after 2 years. We specify that they have to give us a distribution request. And we do use a system where it's a link, they go in, they can upload their transcript, and then they basically get processed for distribution. We also require that the full amount of the scholarship is used within 7 years of graduation. And why we do that is that we do have students that drop out and they say they're going to come back, but not by not having a drop dead date, we could carry these scholarships for years and years and years. Now, what a lot of affiliates and national have done alumni scholarships, and that student could always reapply for a different scholarship. But for accounting purposes and tax purposes, it's much cleaner for us to have a date that we would be able to forfeit that money. We at National asked them to give us a short report, just telling us a little bit about their activities. Did they win any awards? Are they involved in any extracurricular activities like an AIA or an AGC student? It really helps us learn what our alumni are doing, and we use a lot of this information in our social media and in some of our reports. And you heard Bob say, very important that they give us permission that we are able to utilize their name, their picture, and their award. So please, if you're not doing terms, please make sure you make that a priority. For the financial, we mentioned this in the financial webinar, but it is extremely important that because our accounting system is an accrual basis, we have to put the full amount of the scholarship booked into accounts payable. So if we give a $4,000 scholarship, which is $1,000 for the next 4 years, and we give it in 2025, in 2025, you book $4,000. And that $4,000 needs to be in your bank account. This money should be marked as restricted funds and should not be used for anything other than its set purpose. And then any forfeited scholarship dollars really should be used for future scholarships. One of the things that many affiliates have done, and we think is a great idea, is as scholarships are forfeited, utilize that money for alumni scholarships. When you look at return of investment on our scholarship dollars, there is a very high return of investment if a student is in their third, fourth, or even in architecture, their fifth year, but they've hit a point where they don't have their financial burden covered. The likelihood of them graduating with a degree and coming into our industry is much higher than that of a freshman who's just starting out. So we do ask that each affiliate consider earmarking some money for alumni scholarships. And now I'm going to have Monica take over and just go a little bit through utilizing the database.
Thanks, Diana. Give me a minute to pull my screen up here. Okay. I see from the list of attendees that a lot of you are using our database for your scholarship applications, so that's great. Love to see that, but I'm going to quickly just show those who might not know this is available, what you can do in here. And I'm available anytime to walk anyone through this individually. But if you log into your account, find scholarships over here on the left, view scholarships, and then create new scholarship up in the right corner here. Everything is pre-populated based on a real basic, realistic application. Bob and Sarah both mentioned having it be simple, realistic, and having all the requirements and terms. So pretty much a lot of this is already done for you, but you have an opportunity to add in any information about the scholarship that you want here. and you can do your terms down here. So that will always be attached to the student's application while they're completing it. So there shouldn't be any surprises. But the sections are right up here, basic information, education, activities, essays, recommendation letters, and transcripts. And you'll just want to go through each of these, select required if you like what we have pre-populated, and you can always add custom form fields as well. So basic information here, again, just click what's required. Education, we think we have everything that you could possibly need for both high school and alumni. So it's just a matter of choosing what you are requiring. And again, you can do a custom one down here as well. Activities and honors, real basic, list your activities and extracurricular honors and awards and achievements. You need to just hit required on those. If there's anything additional you want to add in here, let's say a competition team or something else that maybe is specific to your affiliate, you could certainly do that in the custom one. Essay questions, you're going to want to make sure and hit required in the high school section here, unless you're doing an alumni scholarship. These are questions down here you can use, but we feel like we covered the simple, realistic part of this as best we could. For recommendation letters and transcripts and uploads, you can hit required here for both uploading the transcript and recommendation letters. For the CMIC, I have an extra note that, if you have trouble uploading your information, please reach out to a mentor or myself so I can upload it for them. So you might want to add some instructions in there just so when they get to that point and they've done all this work and they can't upload something, they don't get scared they're going to miss out on something. And with every one of these changes that you make down here in the bottom right corner, you have to hit publish every time. So if you want to go in and create this, you save your draft, you come back in, you make change, go to the bottom of each section and just hit publish every time. So we make sure that it gets uploaded. One thing I didn't mention earlier, there's two different kinds of privacy settings you can do on this. Public means that every student registered in your affiliate would have access to that application. It'll show up in their profile. Private is if you want to specifically only invite a certain group. So for the CMIC, I make them private, and as you all know, invite each student to apply for that. But if you need any further information on that, if you do hit private, there's a couple other steps about how to add those particular students, and I can help you with that. And then the final thing, and I won't go too far into this, but once you have it created and you have submissions, you can run reports, you can download things. Just show you a quick example here. This is an application or a scholarship from last year. There's two things you can do. You can export all in a spreadsheet. That means every column that you've asked will be its own column in a spreadsheet. It's very clean. Some people really love looking at spreadsheets. I know I do, but there's also this PDF button on each application, and that will pull up a separate application form for that student, as well as all of their uploads. So there's two different ways that you can use this information once you're in there. And I can stop there unless anyone has any questions, but I'm really happy to walk anyone through this anytime. And Diana, we do have some chat.
I know, we're not done yet. Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Thanks, Monica. We do know a lot of you are using the applications within the database, and please make sure if you have any questions, you reach out to your regional director, and we will get you even more additional training if you need it. There was one question in the chat about going back to evaluation. We are going to, after this, in the next couple of weeks, you will be invited, if you're interested, into small chats of different size affiliates to help you develop your rubrics. So when it comes to evaluating the scholarships, this is just some examples of the rubrics that is used by some affiliates as well as national. And really it's, looking at, are they participating? Do they come and do they participate in the ACE sessions? Do they have leadership and extracurricular activities? I'm going to skip over the essay and go back to it. But, we highly recommend that you require a mentor or a team leader to do an evaluation for the student, to be able to really explain to the selection committee what this student means to the ACE Mentor program. Did they take a summer experience? Are they working? Are they doing anything else? Their academic performance, and then other considerations. So in your essays, this is a great time for you to ask your students to really take the time to tell you about their situation. This is a great place. We at National ask the question, tell us, how are you going to pay for your college or your post-secondary? What struggles are you going to have? It's really interesting to see when the students tell us that they're not going to get any money from their family. Their family doesn't have the ability. They're really worried. They're applying for scholarships. It gives us a very good understanding of need. So this is just a sample of a rubrics. But again, what we are going to do as a follow-up is have small group sessions where we're going to ask different affiliates to participate and really go into some detail as far as what is the best practice for evaluation. There are some additional questions. And Bob, there's one affiliate question: what is the best way or how to send the checks to the school?
Yeah, if you have, so what we try to do is, first off, is especially at some of the schools where we have lots of students going, try to set up ACH transfers, because we think that, gets the money there faster. There's not going to be lost checks. And we do ask the students for their student ID number that we include on the checks. So the name and the student ID, ACH transfer if possible, sending a check if you can't get the ACH set up. Hopefully that answers the question.
It does, thank you. And remember that we do not ask for social security numbers in any part of our database. As part of when a student proves that they are in good standing or that they have confirmation of enrollment, we do require them to give us their student number. You're not going to be able to send a check to a school without the student number. The other thing that we would highly recommend is that if you are sending it to the schools, make sure the student has an idea as to when you sent it, because we have had situations where the school has cashed the check, but has not necessarily applied it to the student's account in a timely fashion. And we've had cases where the school hasn't even cashed the check. So make sure that you give some accountability to the student and let them know when you sent the check. Bob, another question. Tax liability. If you send the check to the student, there is potential that there is tax liability. Is there any onus on ACE to do any reporting?
No, it's on the student's responsibility. There's a question when they do their taxes about money received. They did receive the funding, so they would be the ones responsible for the reporting. That's why I also do like that, like the schools though are required on their end to send the students tax documents for any scholarships they received.
Great, thank you. There is the question about criteria and to make sure that we are not using biases. That is why we're going to do small chat discussions so that we make sure that we are all using proper evaluation tools for these scholarships. Okay, Bob, the big question. This is a debate that we hear over, and Sarah, feel free to join in. The big debate over and over again. Is there a minimal amount per year that is best? Is there a minimum amount, number one? And is it best to give more money to less students or less money to more students?
I've been doing this for 20 some years. My mind changes day to day on this one. We do feel that there should be a minimum amount. You want the scholarship to be impactful. College now, we've sort of set a minimum of $1,250 a year, but we're really sort of pushing more towards 2,000 or above as we try to get some of our scholarships up higher. And then the amounts, like more students, lower amounts, less students, higher amounts. That's really tough one there. College Now provides a lot of retention services to students. A lot of our students are first generation college students, so we do try to get as many students in the scholarship pool as possible, because we know that we're going to provide them services that might help them through school. So on our end, we would probably lean towards the more scholarships, but we still want them to be impactful. Sarah, would you add anything?
I think the only thing I'd add that you haven't said, Bob, is I think if you're asking yourself, okay, do we give them one big award or do we do a smaller award and then we can make it renewable and have it available to them for multiple years? I would always go for multi-year funding. A lot of students get freshman awards, like they get something from the local PTA or the local Lions Club or whatever, and those are often one time. So if you can provide consistent support to them throughout their college journey, I think that's always more impactful. It's also great for you all to keep them in your radar so they can come back once they're graduated and give or be involved, right? It's another tether to the organization for the student, and that you can be there throughout their whole experience for them. So I would always advise going with renewable over not, even if that means the student is maybe getting a little less per year. You know, a $2,000 scholarship might not seem like much, but if it's over 4 or 5 years, that's $10,000, which is way more for a student, and I think more impactful than a big one-time gift.
Yeah, I would also, I would agree with that. Students can make some bad decisions based on big freshman scholarships we've seen as well,
Yes.
where it's like, oh, I've got enough money to cover this freshman year. I'll figure out how to come up with the other $10,000 my second year. And there's really no way for them to do it. They can't work enough, and there aren't a ton of scholarships out there for upperclassmen comparatively to when they're freshmen. So them being able to split it over 4 years is definitely advantageous to the student.
Great, thank you. And a reminder, if any of you have been on the CMIC announcement calls, we make a very big deal that this is more than just about the money. With our transformative partners and other alumni services, it is a great way for us to support the student and make sure that they have what they need to get them through their post-secondary. Money is great, but money's not going to get them through by themselves. The last topic, and I'm going to give Bob and Sarah the chance to talk a little bit more about College Now, is the tracking. Right now in our database, we do not have the ability to do tracking. Most affiliates are using Excel, some are using QuickBooks and some others. But College Now, go ahead and tell us a little bit about your services.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, College Now, we track our students from year to year. Our system allows us to not only track their academic progress, but also the amounts of funding they've received. Since we manage many other scholarships, it allows us to look at our students' total scholarship package. We do everything electronically, where students upload all their documentation to our portal. And then we also send all of our students through what's called the National Student Clearinghouse, which is a program that the colleges report to that verify graduation. This is one of the benefits I think ACE really appreciate, is the fact that we can stay up to date on students. We are primarily working in schools or non-schools with the funders here in Northeast Ohio, but we do work with funders all over the country. So if somebody was, wanting to possibly take advantage of some of our services, feel free to reach out to Sarah or myself. Or even if you just wanted to ask some questions to get some ideas, we're always happy to sit down and talk. Like I said, we're a nonprofit. Our goal is to help students get through college.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? I have not seen any others come in. The biggest takeaway from this is that you will be getting an email with all the information we talked about. In addition, if any of you want to participate in the small group discussions on rubrics and selection committees, simply email your regional director and they will let you know when we're setting all of that up. Thank you all for everything you do for our students. Hopefully this was helpful. We know we could go a lot deeper in different topics, but we wanted to keep it within the hour. And again, feel free to reach out to us at National with any questions that you might have. With that, last call for questions.
There is one question about the approved degree list.
Oh, I just saw that pop up. That is part of the follow-up. You will get that. And I will make one comment on that because it did come up on the other call, is you as the funder have the right to make decisions. There have been times where we have a great student and for whatever reason, they just couldn't do engineering and they went into accounting and they want to be an accountant within the construction industry. It's the hardest thing is to tell a student that we feel very strongly about hey, no, you forfeited your scholarship. No, you do have the ability, but you have to be consistent in what you do. So if you have any questions on that, we're happy to discuss that as well, but we will be sending the approved list.